Тобто єврей це факт, це вже один стереотип, книжка вся на стереотипах, але вона по-доброму написана, і вона симпатична.
They asked me in history department at Northwestern, Yohanan, can you define yourself professionally? I say, I am the strongest historian in history department. And then there is a pause, and my 33 colleagues are absolutely silent, flabbergasted by my chutzpah. And then I make a pause and I say, I can do 25 push-ups. So, now, among people who helped me to discover Ukraine, where I was born, were many Jews, and some of them were Canadian Jews, and some of them were Toronto Jews. In 1991, I am a professor of Kyiv University, teaching Latin American literature, Spanish Baroque literature, philology of medieval Spanish, different courses on theory of literature from Plato to Lotman, and other stuff which has no relevance to our today's discussion. And then I get a call, and the person who I had heard about, Josef Zissels, tells me that there is a person coming from Canada, from Toronto. He's a journalist. His name is Sheldon Kirshner. He is a prominent figure in a Jewish community, and he needs a translator who would go with him to different Ukrainian political figures because he wants to interview them about Ukrainian Jewish relations. Well, I was a Jew, born in Ukraine, raised in Ukraine, educated in Ukrainian Russia. I don't think I ever asked a question where there is such an issue as Ukrainian Jewish relations. I knew that the issue exists, but whether relations existed, it was for me rather a question of personal relations with Ukrainian writers, authors, that I never saw through the prism of ethnicity. They were friends, they were interlocutors, members of the extended family. Sheldon comes to Kyiv and says, Yohanan, I need you to take me to different people, and I also need you to translate for me, and it'll be simultaneous translation, and we will work for a couple of hours of each of them. I say, okay, let's go. So who we went to? First, we went to Larisa Skorik, who in 1982 became the first president of the Society of Ukrainian Israeli Relations. And Skorik spoke for an hour about the importance of Ukrainian-Israeli relations in view of the two nation-states that were mentioned today, because Ukraine has something to learn from Israel. And it was quite a discovery for me. I never thought that Ukraine as a country, as a new post-colonial country, can learn something about itself looking at how Israel emerged as a post-colonial country in 1947-48. Then we went to Dmytro Pavlychko, who was, I believe, one of the prime ministers at the time. Pavlychko had many different functions and a very highly positioned figure. The only thing I asked Sheldon not to mention who is his translator, because Pavlychko knew my father, Pavlychko knew the family, so, and I was not a great admirer of this person. So Pavlychko was talking to Sheldon Kirshner about the importance of Israeli-Ukrainian and Jewish-Ukrainian relations because he wanted Israeli missiles to launch Ukrainian Sputniks to cosmos. Third person was Yuriy Scherbak, who in a couple of months after our meeting had to become the first ambassador of Ukraine in Israel. And the conversation was, of course, about new understanding of Ukrainian Jewish relations, about anti-Semitism, about President Kravchuk going to Brussels, presenting the issue of new Ukraine to the European countries, and actually saying that, yes, Ukrainians acknowledge their guilt before Jews for the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. Whatever was the political context of this statement, whatever its historical accuracy, I wanted to say that at that time it was astounding, because I believe from all the Soviet republics he was the only one who did that. And then, of course, we went to Dzuba. to Iván Dрач, who was at the time the head of the Rukh movement, representing the national-centric movement within the Ukrainian political context. All these people spoke about Ukrainian Jewish and Ukraine-Israel relations, and it was a revelation for me. I realized I am getting into something from an angle that has a meaning. What is the meaning? Why am I allowed to look into the subject matter as if I am in it, because I'm translating, but I'm also not in it, because I am keeping the distance between these people and Sheldon Kirshner. Sheldon leaves, goes to Toronto, publishes, I believe, 15 or 20 different interviews in Canadian Jewish News, which at the time, I don't know how it is today, but at the time it is the Jewish newspaper in North America with the biggest circulation. Among those interviews, you'll also find an interview with me, but you know, who am I then, who am I now, it doesn't matter. Sheldon allowed me to look into Ukrainian Jewish issues. And he also told me that he will introduce me to another person who is coming also from Toronto, also to Kyiv, to do something very different, and who can be helpful in my future endeavors. This person, who comes in a couple of months, is Barry Walfish, who is the custodian of the ancient books and Judaica collection at the Robarts Library. Barry comes to Kyiv. We spent time in Kyiv and in Lviv working with the newly declassified collections of Judaica manuscripts and books. It was a revelation for me that Kyiv has about 10,000 Jewish books published anywhere from the 16th to late 19th century, that Lviv has about several thousand books published in the 18th, 19th century. These are huge, important collections. Barry helps me to master the knowledge of bibliography of Judaica manuscripts and books, and he also shows me that Ukraine has a trove of Jewish history that I knew nothing about. I'm taking Barry through the hills of Kyiv, and we talk about what I am doing at the university, what I am doing as my hobby, my new hobby, Judaica manuscripts. And Barry says, so what are you planning to do in the future? And I'm saying, well, I'm interested in combining my previous degree in Spanish medieval, Spanish philological studies, and my interest in Jewish studies. I would like to do something on Sephardic Jews before they are banished from Spain, before they actually become Sephardic Jews. So Jews in Spain, medieval times, 711 till 1492. So from the times the Jews came to Spain till the expulsion. He looks at me very seriously and says, why don't you study Jews in Ukraine? I was thrilled for two reasons. First, I thought it's a very non-interesting subject matter. And second, I thought, what do I know about that? I'm much better in Spain than in Ukraine. But it takes time, you know, from 1992 till 2016, you know, I move intellectually in a good direction, as one of my friends said, but very slowly. So it takes time, right? Third person was a rabbi whom Barry introduced me to in Kyiv, who was not a Canadian, who was not from Toronto. He was from Bnei Brak, an Israeli rabbi whom I took around Kyiv, because these people wanted me to show them Jewish and Ukrainian sites in Ukraine. We are standing in front of the official monument to the Babyn Yar massacre. At that time, there is just this official monument with the 3 memorial plaques. One plaque in Ukrainian, it says, on this place, the Nazi invaders massacred 100,000 peaceful Soviet citizens. The second plaque says the same in Russian, and the third says the same in Yiddish with 9 typos. We are standing in front of the Russian plaque. Ukrainian there, Russian there, monument in front of us. The rabbi on my left. Two young people, a boy about 20 and a girl about 18, are standing and looking at the plaques. And the girl asks the boy, I understand this is Ukrainian, this is Russian, and this is what? And the boy answers out loud, I don't know, maybe it's in Armenian. I was shocked. I momentarily translated the conversation to the rabbi. I was really shocked to what extent people are oblivious of what is really going on, or what really happened there. And I realized that memory, or better to say, the absence thereof, might be extremely dangerous, and something has to be done for the people who are coming to this monument and to this place would never forget that this is not Armenian, this is actually Yiddish, and Yiddish because of the 33,771 Jews killed on this place in 2 days in September 1941, and among these people were the mother of my grandmother and the sister of my grandmother, and the brother of my grandmother managed to get away. Last person who I want to mention was also Jewish, and he also helped me to discover Ukraine in an amazingly interesting and innovative way. This person lives in a ghetto in Jerusalem. He knows that non-Jews exist, but he probably never saw them. First time he goes out of the country, he goes to Kyiv to work with Judaica manuscripts. And he asks me to take him to different Hassidic sites of Ukraine because he is an ultra-Orthodox Hassid. He walks with his big fur hat called shtreimel, in his long silk kapota. He has short pants and white socks, and looks like a person from, well, I would say fall of 1725. Well, I would say winter 1726 will be already, the fashion of half a year later will be too fashionable for him. I take him to Uman, to Ruzhin, to Brody, to Lemberg, to Vizhnitsa, to Kuti, to Kosov, to Medjibesh, to Berdichev. And then, bored with all Hasidic sites, he says, I would like to see something genuinely Ukrainian. Okay, let's go to opera, I say. And I take him to the Opera House. September 1992, Kyiv Opera House starts its season with Taras Bulba. It's a great opera to watch with a Jew. As you remember, there is a very important plot about Taras Bulba, his two sons. One of his sons is a rebel who is captured and killed by the Poles. Another son of his is marrying into a Polish family. Taras considers him a traitor and, kills him. There is this very interesting family plot about Ukrainians versus the Poles. Poles are the oppressors, Ukrainians are liberators, and they are also Jews who do not appear on the stage. But they do appear in Taras Bulba, in the original text. Menachem Mendel, let's call him Menachem Mendel, after all, he was a Menachem Mendel, goes with me to the opera house, and all the opera house looks at him, not at the stage. Because he's in the shtreimel, he has his silk kapota, and he sits next to me. And he gets very interested and very excited about the plot, to the extent that by the end of the second act, he already identifies himself with the Cossacks, with Taras Bulba, with his suffering, with this opposition, Ukrainians versus Poles, to the extent that he just whispers into my ear, please continue explaining what's going on. So I'm trying to look at the libretto. I'm catching the words, when the Ukrainian language is beautiful when it is sung, but I cannot capture exactly the words of libretto, transferring them into the ears of Menachem Mendel. People murmur left and right, just shut up, and because they are listening to music, he is watching what is going on, and then at a certain moment, when there is a famous scene on the stage, Andriy, the son of Taras Bulba, marries a Polish girl. And I explained to Rabbi Menachem Mendel what's going on. Menachem Mendel leans to me and says, "What? He marries a Goya?" Azoy Bashef didozike Goya, says he. So at that moment, I understood that Ukrainian Jewish encounter had a past and has a future. Thank you.